The seal pounded through the blizzard, two dying puppies clutched to his chest, his last promise to a fallen canine partner. Their breaths were fading fast. Then a truck screeched beside him, and an old veteran called out, "Get in, son. I'll help you." He didn't know. He'd just stepped into a nightmare. Before we start, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The snowstorm whipped against his face, but the seal barely noticed. His focus was entirely on the two trembling puppies cradled in his arms. They were the last remnants of a life that had once been filled with purpose and loyalty, a life shared with his fallen canine partner, the dog who had saved him countless times in combat. Every small whimper from the pups pulled at his heart, each breath a reminder that time was slipping away. He had promised their mother on the battlefield that he would protect her children, no matter the cost. And now, with the freezing wind cutting through his jacket, that promise felt heavier than ever before. This wasn't just a mission. It was survival, love, and honor all rolled into one fragile bundle. He could still hear the explosions, still smell the smoke from that night overseas. The memory came back in fragments, shouting, gunfire, and his K9 partner sprinting ahead with fearless determination. She had always been the first to sense danger, the one who stood between him and death more times than he could count. But on that final mission, the threat had come too fast. A hidden device detonated just yards from their position. He remembered being thrown to the ground, ears ringing, vision trembling. When he crawled toward her, she was already fading, her breathing shallow, eyes fixed on him with unwavering loyalty. Despite the pain, she nudged the pouch where her newborn puppies were safely tucked away. In that moment, he understood. Her last act wasn't to save herself. It was to save him and the tiny lives she could no longer protect. Now, as the storm thickened around him, the seal felt the urgency tightening in his chest. The puppies were growing weaker by the minute, tiny bodies shivering, breaths turning faint and uneven. He pressed them closer to his warmth, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. The nearest animal veterinarian was miles away, but it was the only chance they had left. Snow clung to his boots as he trudged forward, every step a battle against the freezing wind. He kept glancing down, terrified each time their little movements slowed. He'd lost their mother. He refused to lose them too. Not out here, not tonight. The engine's final sputter felt like a punch to his gut. The seal slammed his palm against the steering wheel as the car shuddered, coughed, and died in the middle of the blinding storm. For a moment, he sat there in the silence, listening to the puppy's faint whimpers from the passenger seat. Panic crept up his spine. He popped the hood, cold wind blasting his face as he worked with numb fingers, but nothing responded. Not the battery, not the ignition, not even the lights. Time was slipping away, and the pups were fading fast. With no other choice, he wrapped them inside his jacket, pulled the hood over his head, and stepped into the storm. He would walk, no matter how far. No matter the cost. Through the swirling white haze, a sudden beam of headlights cut across the road, slowing as it approached his struggling figure. The seal tightened his grip on the puppies, instinctively bracing for anything. A battered old pickup rolled to a stop beside him, its engine rumbling low. The driver's door creaked open, and an elderly man stepped out. Heavy coat, frost in his beard, and a faded military patch on his sleeve. "You look like you're fighting the whole storm alone." "Son," the man said, voice rough but warm. "Hop in before you freeze." The seal hesitated, scanning him out of habit, but the familiar insignia eased his guard. Another veteran. Someone who understood duty and loss. "Come on," the old man urged. "No one survives out here by themselves." For the first time that night, the seal felt a flicker of hope. Inside the truck, warmth wrapped around him like a blessing. The puppies shifted slightly, their tiny bodies responding to the sudden heat. For the first time in hours, the seal felt a sliver of relief. The old veteran kept glancing over with a gentle smile, asking about the pups, about their mother, about the storm. His questions were friendly, though a few felt oddly pointed. Still, the seal pushed the thought aside. After all, the man had stopped when no one else would. As the truck rumbled through the snow, it felt like hope was finally catching up to them. The truck eventually turned off the main road, crunching down a narrow path barely visible beneath the snow. The seal frowned. He didn't see any clinic signs, no lights, no buildings shaped like a vet's office, just a small cabin swallowed by trees. The old man parked beside it, tapping the steering wheel with a strange calmness. "We're here," he said. "I can help the little ones inside." But something felt wrong. Too quiet. Too isolated. The kind of place where no one would hear a cry for help. The puppies began to whine weakly, their tiny paws twitching against his chest, as if warning him. The seal's instincts sharpened. This wasn't the destination he expected, and maybe not the help he'd hoped for. The old man opened the cabin door, and a stale, metallic smell drifted out, something the seal recognized instantly from war zones. Blood. His grip on the puppies tightened as he stepped inside, eyes scanning every shadow. The place wasn't a clinic at all, no medical supplies, no animal equipment. Instead, the walls were lined with locks, chains, and tools that didn't belong anywhere near healing. Before he could react, the door slammed shut behind him. The old man's voice dropped its warm tone, replaced with something cold and predatory. "People around here disappear in storms," he said, lifting a rusted knife from a table. "No one ever asks why." He stepped closer, smiling with a sick familiarity, like he'd rehearsed this moment many times before. The seal's pulse spiked, and the puppies, barely able to stand, let out faint growls. Sensing danger before he could even move, the old man lunged, knife glinting under the dim light. But the seal reacted on instinct, twisting his body to shield the puppies. He stumbled back, boots scraping across the wooden floor. Before the killer could strike again, a sound pierced the tension, a desperate, rasping bark. One of the puppies, shaking violently, dragged itself forward and sank its tiny teeth into the man's ankle. The old man howled, stumbling. That split-second distraction was all the seal needed. He surged up, slamming his shoulder into the attacker, sending them both crashing into a table. Tools clattered everywhere. The knife skittered across the floor, fueled by adrenaline and the sight of the trembling pups. The seal overpowered the man, pinning him with unwavering force. Those helpless little lives had bought him the moment that saved all three of them. The old man writhed beneath him, snarling threats, but the seal didn't waver. He could finish it now, end the danger with one decisive move. Yet when he looked back at the puppies, barely conscious and fighting for every breath, his mission shifted. Justice could wait. Their lives couldn't. He tore a length of rope from the cabin wall, binding the man's wrists tight enough to cut off circulation. Then, with trembling hands and a heart pounding from adrenaline, he scooped the puppies into his jacket and pushed out into the snow. Saving them came first. Everything else could follow as he drove the killer's truck through the storm with shaking hands, eyes flicking constantly to the two small bodies nestled against his chest. When the glowing sign of the real animal clinic finally appeared through the snow, relief nearly brought him to his knees. He burst through the doors, shouting for help. Veterinarians rushed forward, lifting the pups with practiced urgency. Machines beeped, lights flashed, and the room filled with quiet commands. Minutes felt like hours to at last. The vet emerged with a tired smile. "They're weak," she said gently, "but they're going to make it." The seal exhaled, finally, truly breathing again. Once the puppies were safe, the seal returned to finish what he'd begun, not with violence, but with justice. He guided the police through the storm to the old man's cabin, its walls still echoing with the darkness he'd witnessed. Inside, officers uncovered evidence of other victims. Lives stolen, stories cut short in the quiet isolation of winter. The killer, now shackled and furious, was dragged out into the snow. The seal watched in silence, knowing this time no one else would disappear. Days later, the seal stood outside the clinic, watching the puppies wobble on unsteady legs, stronger now, their tiny tails wagging with new life. He knelt beside them, brushing a hand gently over their fur, and felt the familiar ache of memory. Their mother had given everything for him, and now her pups carried her spirit, her courage, her fierce loyalty. He lifted them into his arms, whispering a quiet promise to the sky. "Your family is safe. I'll protect them, just like you protected me." In the falling snow, that vow felt eternal. In a world where storms rise without warning, sometimes the smallest hearts show us the greatest courage. The seal walked into the night with the puppies tucked close, knowing their bond was forged in survival. and destined to carry them forward together.